Well, it seems that socialism is back and more popular than ever, especially so-called democratic socialism. That's why it's important that you watch this video, because I'm going to tell you why and how socialism as a system ultimately leads to evil, and that's because it is too far down one side of a slippery slope pyramid where either side can lead you to trouble. Now, this is not going to be a video about the economics of socialism and about how the government taking your stuff is theft and why that is bad. This is going to be a video about the moral and political reasons of socialism leading to evil. So, to begin, we have to understand this one thing, and that is the social contract. Now, this is not something that we think about, but something that we feel, and that is us as individuals giving up certain rights or giving up certain things in order to live in society. So, for example, you're going to give up some of your hard-earned money to pay for roads and to pay for police, courts, judges, these type of things. All the systems that you need to have a functioning government, a functioning society, and that's even before you've paid your hydro and your rent and your food and everything else. This is the basic stuff that you need to run a government. But the question here is, when do you give up too much? And why is it so bad that we have a large government? Well, having a large government is bad because of the illusion that it creates. The illusion is that people think they have a say, but they don't. In democracies, people vote for a representative, and they tend to think that that's how it works. We have democracy, and therefore I'm voting on issues. But again, you're not voting on actual issues. You're voting for a representative, not directly on any of the issues or any of the things that are important to you. You're just kind of hoping that those representatives actually do the thing that you voted them in to do. Power is therefore concentrated in these people, and these people, these third-party decision makers, are given all of the power to make decisions for you. Now, when it comes to government systems and government departments, the illusion is a bit different, and that's the illusion that you as an individual actually have any control. Now, all you have to do to be able to test this is go to your local water authority and tell them that you want to have a say as to what happens, or you'd like to know a lot more about how the water system works in your city or your province or your state, whatever it is. They'll say, well, you know, you're not a professional, you're not an expert, and they'll probably throw you out with a security guard if you are lucky. Now, a large government is going to be bad because it either concentrates power in political leaders or political representatives, or in experts, elites, and politicians, not the people that it supposedly represents. Further, we have to remember that government is not just the people. Government is basically a big gun. Now, this means that everything that the government does, it does with the implication that you will be made to do this thing. You will be made to follow this rule by use of force if you decide not to do it. First, there are fines, then there's imprisonment. Ultimately, there can be execution, again, depending on the state or the society that you live in. But ultimately, the state is a big gun which forces people to do the things that it has been decided that they should do. So, the question is now, once you've limited the people's freedoms to such a degree, you have a big state and you have no control because you either have representatives or experts that are all in charge of everything, and you've given up so much power. Once you've limited people's freedoms to such a degree and the use of force is concentrated in an increasingly small number of people, evil is guaranteed to happen, because even if you start off as benevolent people, even if this group of elites, this group of politicians, representative experts, even if they start off as benevolent, there's always going to be, because of human nature, there's always going to be a Stalin or a Hitler or someone behind them with a gun waiting to abuse that system and take control of this now incredibly large government that they've created. Now, to wrap things up, I kind of want to talk about the political spectrum, because I think this really will hammer things home for some people. Now, I'm going to pull up this. This is the classic political spectrum, and I found this one on a website, and it's a bit older, you can tell by the logos, but I thought it was kind of amusing, and the fact that I found it on Google and it references Canada made it even more entertaining for me to pull up. So most people think you have here the center, so we've got the center. On the left, you have the NDP, the Liberals, Socialism, you've got Medicare, higher taxes, all the way going down to the Soviet Union, China, the left, community, communism, these type of things. On the right, you're going to have conservatives, lower taxes, Republicans, capitalism, the PCs at the time they were called before they became the Conservative Party, merged with the Canadian Alliance. Then you've got fascism and Nazi Germany and individualism. The only problem is this does not capture what we're talking about, and it does not actually represent what the government is and what socialism or any of these other systems are. That is because it does not capture liberty and individualism versus authoritarianism and groupthink and group socialism. Now, this is an aptly titled picture called The True Political Spectrum, And this is, at the bottom here, the most important part: 100% total government power, 0% government power. Now, this is the slippery slope. On one side, you have no power, no government. So you have anarchy. This is what is called the state of nature. So it's the war of man against man. Everyone is just kind of fighting for themselves. Might makes right. If you want something, you beat that person up and you take it. This is total anarchy. There's no society. We're all just kind of living in just perpetual state of war, as is said. So this is the slippery slope on one side of having no government or too little government. On the other side, you have total government power. And the interesting part about this, and why I want to bring this up, is because people often confuse fascism and communism as being on total opposite ends of the political spectrum. So you have here left and right. But what is most important is the fact that both of them share the desire for 100% total government power and government control. That's why you can have someone like Stalin, who has ordered the execution of hundreds of people, sent thousands, millions even to their death, and Hitler, who did practically the same thing through use of the government. This is why socialism, which is more on the left side of this political chart, socialism is going to ultimately lead to evil, again, for the reasons I've outlined, which is the illusion of control and the fact that ultimately there is going to be someone behind you with a gun waiting to take control of that very large and very beautiful system which you have built. So what about the other end of the political spectrum? If 100% government control is going to ultimately lead to evil, shouldn't that mean that the answer is 0% government control, zero evil? Well, that's not true, because if you have no police, no courts, no judges, you'll simply be in a war of all against all. Might will make right, and you can do whatever you want if you have the power to back it up. You'll be able to take from those that are weaker than you through violence or some other kind of evil means, and again, you're stuck in a situation where society, or the lack thereof, has created the evil. Now, I want to bring here a thought from a 12th century rabbi named Moses ben Maimon, the Rambam, or Maimonides as he's known in English, because he tackles this theoretical problem in a way that makes sense. He says that most people tend to conceptualize things as good versus evil. So you have good on one hand and evil on the other hand. Instead, he said, let's think of it like this. Evil on one hand, evil on the other, and good actually in the middle. And we can use charity as an example for this to make sense. Now, if you give no charity, that would be bad. But on the other hand, you could give so much charity that you yourself will give away all your material possessions and then require charity from others. That's also bad. Instead, he said, let's be in the middle and give the appropriate amount of charity so that you can continue to help others while also supporting your family and taking care of yourself. Now, this is the type of thing that we need to keep in mind when we're talking about the political spectrum. We need to find some sort of balance here, some sort of representative democracy that has safeguards to prevent us from going too far to either side, and that is the real challenge, and that is why not only does socialism lead to evil, but the lack of all government leads to evil, again creating that pyramid of slippery slopes that I mentioned earlier. Now, I know this is a little bit complicated, and I hope you were able to follow along with me, but tell me what you think. I really enjoy this political spectrum. I think it is a much better representation of what government is and government is not, rather than the traditional left and right. I'm really curious to see what you guys think, and where do you guys think Canada falls right now on this new political spectrum, which, according to the image, is listed as the true political spectrum. So, for True North, I am Sam Eskenasi. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something. Have yourselves a great evening, and thank you again.